Hi everyone. Today we're looking at the Handbook of Instructional Leadership, How Successful Principals Promote Teaching and Learning. I was interested in this book because it discusses teachers' perceptions of instructional supervisors' behavior that can positively or negatively impact instructional outcomes. It also discusses the teacher perception on how an instructional supervisor can facilitate peer-to-peer relationships that will drive instructional supervision. The premise of the book also had a intertwining of existing research that supported the author's findings. The study was comprised of 800 kindergarten through 12th grade teachers. They were located across the United States, and they used an open-ended questionnaire to determine the impact principal behavior had on the teacher's instruction. The authors then took the interview responses and they broke them into chapters that followed overarching themes. The first chapter was on conference, and the authors labeled that the heart of instructional supervision. They said that poor supervision in a conference was really defined by a teacher's perception that there was an absence of goals of supervision, whereas teachers reported that instructional leaders with goals driving school improvement was more likely to increase motivation and morale and also improve instruction. When you're in a conference and it's one-on-one teacher and instructional supervisor, then there are subcategories that we're going to look at that the authors discuss about making suggestions. So when we make suggestions, we need to have goals in mind that need to be driving, because remember what the authors had found about teachers perceiving the fact that if a goal isn't driving a suggestion, it's meaningless. So the goal has to be perceived as improving teaching and learning, preventing teacher complacency, creating a supportive work environment, and helping solve problems. A teacher's acceptance of those suggestions is dependent on these three criteria. The action that's being suggested has to be appropriate to a need that the teacher is perceiving they have in their classroom. If it's behavior, maybe if it's attention, maybe it's a particular student. The teacher also has to feel that they're able to perform that action, and the teacher can't be offended by that action. When you're in that conference, there's certain things, there's certain behaviors that you can do that are going to, again, increase the likelihood the teacher is going to respond to that suggestion and allow it to influence their instructional practices. The first is, I think, the most important, which is listen first. It has to be a dialogue. If the teacher doesn't feel that it's a dialogue, that they're not being heard, then they're going to be less likely to engage in that relationship, which is going to have a negative impact on their implementation of instructional supervision. Effective feedback has to contain a focus on behavior observed. It also has to be perceived as non-evaluative and non-judgmental. It has to be highly detailed with descriptive positive praise and an opportunity for dialogue. The impact it has on teachers, it increases their reflection, it increases their ability to take new ideas and implement them. They will use greater instructional variety. They will respond to the diversity in the classrooms more willingly. They'll be more careful in their planning for instruction, and they'll have a better focus in that. The effects of suggestions, it enhances the teacher reflection. It increases likelihood of trying new instruction methods. They will take more risks, and they will teach with more focus. Staff development was the next largest chapter, and in it, the authors discussed primarily the most important thing that a instructional supervisor can do is to actually build a culture of collaboration and learning. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on that, but also just encouraging attendance at professional developments, promote coaching, using data-driven staff development. But looking at collaboration and learning, one of the reasons that teachers identified it as one of the most positive and substantial impacts on their instructional supervision was because it increases the likelihood of goals being met, because it increases by powers exponentially the impact that the instructional supervision goals being implemented throughout the building are going to be implemented with fidelity. Strategies that help make it stick: modeling, having formal structures for teachers to collaborate, providing planning time, informal structures to having teachers collaborate, and in encouraging peer observation. There was then three smaller themes that were important as far as teachers reporting having an impact on the instructional supervision relationship with the instructional supervisor. The first was being visible. If a principal is visible throughout the building, it's called visibility by wandering, had multiple positive effects. It can have negative impact if the teachers view it as disruptive. The next subsection was praise versus criticism. Criticism will have profound negative effects, and we can get further as instructional supervisors by praising the behaviors we want to see rather than criticizing the behaviors we don't want to see. Criticizing the behaviors that we don't want to see is going to deaden the teacher's likelihood to take risks. And finally, autonomy versus control. Successful principals extended autonomy to teachers regarding instruction and program development, which then furthered their relationship with their instructional supervisor, making it more likely that they were going to continue to buy into the goals and buy into the methodologies that the school itself is trying to implement. However, action seen as controlling had an equally negative impact on the staff. Finally, the successful instructional leader, if you were able to take all of the feedback by the 800 teachers, the successful instructional leader, what they do is they find every opportunity to discuss instruction across the building, across the day, across the year. They're discussing instruction. They're providing time for connections with their staff members. They're empowering their teachers. They understand and embrace change and help their staff to understand and embrace change, and they lead. They lead by example. They're not afraid to do anything that they would ask someone else to do. Thank you so much. Please feel free to read the Handbook of Instructional Leadership by Blaise and Blaise. In it, I'm sure you're going to find many anecdotal stories and quotes that would further your understanding of this topic.